Using VNAV on RNAV approaches is an excellent tool for making stabilized, constant angle descents to approach minimums. There are two different VNAV modes available for use on an RNAV approach: VPath and VGP. VPath is typically used for approaches to an MDA. VGP is generally used for approaches to a DA. When using VPath, the MDA for the approach is set in the altitude preselector, and the flight guidance will level off at the selected altitude. VGP mode is similar to glide slope mode on an ILS. The altitude preselector is ignored, and flight guidance continues below minimums. In this video, we will demonstrate the use of VNAV on an RNAV approach to an MDA. For the use of VNAV for approaches to a DA, refer to the video on using the VGP mode or the video on LPV approaches. For this example, we will be demonstrating VNAV on an RNAV approach to an MDA in the continuation of our flight from Las Vegas to Reno. ATC has assigned us the RNAV X-ray 34 left approach via the NIPME transition. Once the approach is loaded, review and cross-check the waypoints and altitudes in the flight plan with the charted procedure. For an approach to LNAV minimums, we will use the NAV mode for lateral guidance and the VNAV mode to manage our altitude from our present position all the way to MDA. Once the approach clearance is received from ATC, arm VNAV and set MDA in the altitude preselector. Keep in mind that the altitude preselector can only be set in hundreds of feet, so if the minimums are in a 10-foot increment, you'll have to round up to the next 100-foot increment. Now that the altitude preselector is set to MDA, VNAV will automatically descend to comply with the altitudes on the approach. The active vertical mode will be VALT until VPath is intercepted. Since there are no mandatory crossing altitudes for this approach, VNAV will maintain the present altitude until reaching the VNAV path. Once the aircraft captures the VNAV path, VPath becomes the active vertical mode and VSelect is armed. Just like flying an ILS glide slope, the aircraft will adjust pitch to remain on the path. VNAV will automatically level off at the VNAV target altitude or the altitude set in the preselector, whichever is higher. As we approach MDA, it's important to remember that VNAV is set to capture MDA, and the aircraft will begin a level off before reaching MDA. If the visual requirements for landing are met, disconnect the autopilot before leaving MDA and continue the landing. If no changes are made upon reaching the altitude set in the preselector, the aircraft will level off. Once MDA has been captured, wait for VALT to be displayed before setting the missed approach altitude, and then the missed approach procedure can be flown. Once a missed approach is initiated, VNAV can be used for the missed approach segment, and the aircraft will comply with any published altitude requirements in the missed approach. This has been a basic overview of using VNAV on an RNAV approach. Using VNAV for non-precision approaches reduces pilot workload, increases situational awareness, and allows for a stabilized, constant descent approach to minimums.